All right. Good evening. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. Okay. So before I get into the news items, I did want to say you've probably heard about the hurricane hitting the southeast, particularly I think South Carolina and Tennessee. I think in particular have been hit really hard. I don't know, uh, beyond maybe the Red Cross or something like that. I don't know specifically who you should be giving to, but if you have an opportunity to give charitably to help those folks out, I hope you will because it looks really bad. It looks like millions may lose their homes. Um, yeah, it's just really, really bad. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started here. So, quite a few different things. First of all, I'll take a look at the Transformers movie. So, that Transformers 1 came out and it didn't do too well. And apparently, it didn't do too well in its second week either. But this is from Hollywood Reporter. Transformers 1 loses to Beetlejuice in surprise upset. And a surprise twist, the bots got squeezed out by Beetlejuice at the weekend box office. Paramount and Hasbro's Entertainment's Transformers 1 was expected to open at least 30 million to 35 million in North America, more than enough to top the chart. Instead, it came in at an estimated 25 million from 3,978 theaters versus an estimated 26 million from 4,172 theaters for Warner Brothers' Beetlejuice sequel, which is now in its third week. So I know it looks like maybe Transformers 1 had more per theater, maybe, but they just weren't in enough theaters. Perhaps that was it because they were what, almost 200 theaters less. Transformers 1 had held a slight edge as of Saturday morning, but the necessary traffic needed to eke out a victory didn't materialize. The unwelcome news comes despite glowing reviews, awards buzz, and a cinema score and exceptional post-track exit scores. But Paramount and Hasbro always knew they were taking a risk by returning to the franchise's roots and making a CGI animated film with a family-friendly PG rating versus a PG-13 live-action extravaganza targeting fanboys. The movie hoped to play to both demos similar to the blockbuster Spider-Man Spider-Verse series, but so far the turnout has been soft on both fronts. Chatter on social media indicates that some franchise fans were confused as to the film's animated status. The movie also opened overseas, grossing 14 million from 50 markets, or 40% of the international marketplace. The jury is out on the film's ultimate fate. The modestly budgeted event pick, co-financed by Hasbro, cost 75 million to produce before marketing, which minimizes the sting of the weak domestic opening. The hope is now that it can find its footing and enjoy a long run in theaters based on strong exits, scores, and reviews, although the entry of DreamWorks Animation and Universal's The Wild Robot next weekend could complicate matters, at least on the family front. While Wild Robot commenced its international rollout in 8 markets over the weekend, earning 6.9 million, which includes a paltry 4 million from China. Directed by Pixar alum Josh Cooley, Transformers 1 is an origin story chronicling how the two most iconic Transformers, Optimus Prime and Megatron, went from best friends to arch nemeses. Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry voiced the two characters, with Keegan-Michael Key, Scarlett Johansson, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Fishburne, and John Hamm also in the cast. Consider this a franchise revitalized, wrote Frank Schreck in his review of the film for The Hollywood Reporter. The weekend's two other new releases are in far worse shape. Lionsgate's Halle Berry pick Never Let Go came in fourth with an estimated 4.5 million, and Mubi's The Substance, starring Demi Moore, opened in sixth with an estimated 3.1 million. I know Chris Gore from Film Thread, he really raved The Substance. I watched his review on that. He thought it was really, really good. Apparently, it's a body horror film along the lines of the kind of stuff Cronenberg used to do. Beetlejuice continued to dazzle in North America to finish Sunday with a domestic total of 226.8 million. The Tim Burton directed movie hasn't done nearly as well overseas, where it has earned 103 million for a global cumulative of 329.7 million. Coming in third after Beetlejuice and the Transformers 1 debut was the Blumhouse and horror thriller Speak No Evil, which earned 5.9 million in its second weekend for a solid domestic total of 21.5 million, and has earned an equally solid 20.9 million at the international box office for a global total of 42.4 million against a modest $15 million budget. Marvel and Disney's Deadpool and Wolverine rounded out the top 5 in North America with 3.9 million from 2,450 theaters all the way in its ninth weekend for a domestic tally of 627.3 million and a 1.316 billion globally, putting it at number 23 on the list of the 25 top grossing films of all time, not adjusted for inflation. Conservative pundit Matt Walsh's much talked about documentary Am I Racist placed 7th in its second outing with 2.5 million from 1,600 locations for a domestic tally of 9 million, the best showing for a political doc in 2 decades. Interesting. Okay, so I'm surprised that it did that badly. Now, I'm not a huge Transformers fan. I mean, it's okay. I like them okay. But, I didn't really follow the original cartoon that close. It came out, it was part of that group of cartoons with like He-Man and stuff like that in the mid 80s there that were becoming popular just as I was really kind of aging out of cartoons. After about 82 or so, or 83, I started moving away from cartoons myself. But let's see. Okay, so I liked um, the first movie, which I thought was good, for what it was. But I enjoyed it. Now, I didn't see the second one um, until a couple of years after, because when it came out in theaters, I was over in Iraq. But I saw it on cable a couple of years later, and I thought that was awful. And I hadn't really seen any of the others. So I had no real plans to see this. Uh, from the from the trailers, I mean, it looked okay. It was a kind of a reboot type of thing, and it seemed like, in the trailer, it was clearly going for a younger audience, and I think that may have been what did them in here, because I think what the struggle this movie's having kind of speaks to something, and that it's that they're these franchises that date back 30, 40, even 50 years in some cases. I think they're all starting to having a similar problem, and that is that they don't they don't I'm trying to remember what I want to say next. Okay, so God, I'm drawing a blank here. Okay, so for all right, I'm sorry, I'm having a technical difficulty here. Okay, so the issue here is that these franchises that have been around for a long time, they no longer, uh, I think the audience that grew up with them, the Gen Xers basically, and the millennials who grew up with this stuff, they're starting to age out and lose interest. But the younger audience, particularly like Gen Z, Gen Alpha in particular, they just aren't interested in this stuff. They're just not really interested and really want to follow it. And as a result of that, I think these franchises are they're kind of living on borrowed time. And because the audience just isn't there anymore. Okay. Let me go to the next one here. Okay. This is from fastcompany.com. Disney and Paramount lay off hundreds of employees as legacy media giants struggle with pay TV decline in 2024. Okay, it hasn't been a good week for the entertainment industry. Two of the media's biggest names, the Walt Disney Company and Paramount Global, each announced layoffs this week. Both said they would cut hundreds of positions in an effort to reduce cost. Here's what you need to know. Paramount Global on Tuesday announced it would begin phase 2 of its workforce reductions in the United States, with the company announcing which the company announced and began earlier this year. There wasn't a firm number offered as to how many employees would be let go, but Deadline reported it would be at least several hundred. The company's CEOs, George Cheeks, Chris McCarthy, and Brian Robbins, announced the commencement of phase 2 of the layoffs in a memo to employees that was obtained by Fast Company. Like the entire media industry, we're working to accelerate streaming profitability while at the same time adjusting to the evolving landscape in our traditional businesses. In order to set Paramount up for continued success, we are taking these actions, and after today, 90% of these reductions will be complete. It is believed the phase 2 layoffs will impact Paramount's streaming organization more than other departments, Deadline reports. It also notes that last week, Paramount's advertising division also went through job cuts. Previously, Paramount had said all phases of the current layoffs will be about 15% of its U.S. workforce for a total of around 2,000 cuts. Paramount CEOs said its layoffs were 90% complete. They encompass a plan to help the company save $500 million annually. A day after Paramount's most recent job cuts, Disney announced it would also cut its workforce. Deadline pegs the number of Disney staff let go this week to be around 300. All of those laid off are based in the United States, with the layoffs impacting legal, finance, HR, and communications. In a statement confirming the layoffs, a Disney spokesperson said, "We continually evaluate ways to invest in our businesses and more effectively manage our resources and costs to fuel the state-of-the-art creativity and innovation that consumers value and expect from Disney." As part of this ongoing optimization work, we have been reviewing the cost structure for our corporate level functions and have determined that there are ways for them to operate more efficiently. The latest layoffs come just days before Disney's 2024 fiscal year concludes on September 30th. However, while devastating for those affected, this week's layoffs of 300 pale in comparison to the seismic impact that CEO Bob Iger had on the company's workforce numbers when he returned in 2023 to helm the company again. At the time, Iger culled 7,000 positions in an effort to help save $5.5 billion. But the 300 laid off this week aren't the only Disney employees who have lost their jobs recently. In May, Pixar cut about 14% of its workforce, and in July, just Disney Entertainment Television let go 140 workers. While 2023 and 2024 made headlines for massive job cuts across the tech industry, many forgot that media companies have been aggressively cutting jobs for the sake of cost reductions for almost as long. There are a few reasons for this, and both can be blamed on the shift to streaming. There's hardly any entertainment giant left that does not have its own streaming service. But most of these services are so far unprofitable, contributing to losses quarter after quarter. Meanwhile, the transition to streaming is also having an impact on legacy television, the former bread and butter for most of these companies. People today, especially younger generations, are abandoning legacy pay TV services in droves. Fewer audiences means advertisers are less willing to spend as much on advertisements. This is leading to reduced ad income for many media giants. As a way to help stem the bleeding from unprofitable streaming and lower legacy TV ad revenue, Many companies have implemented cost-cutting plans, which often means letting employees go. Yeah. So there was a story I did, was it, I don't know, I think it was maybe 3 weeks back, that was along these similar lines. It particularly, I think, was focusing on like Warner and who was the other one? I think it might have been Sony. But anyway, but the point is that they're losing money at both ends because these streaming shows, even with all the people on them, aren't profitable. Meanwhile, people keep abandoning the old cable networks, and they're shedding people there, and so those are increasingly losing money too. And I don't know how bad it's going to get, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's more cost cutting in the future. I did a story just, was it last week, about who was it? I forget. There was some exec. I think it was someone with Sony who basically said that the next few years are going to be brutal. There's going to be lots of bankruptcies, lots of mergers as companies try to survive. And this is really just along those same lines. Okay, let's go to my next one here. All right, and again, this is from Hollywood Reporter. So I guess last week I did a story about how, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was doing a story about how they were looking at Josh Brolin to be Hal Jordan in this Green Lantern series they're planning, and he wound up turning it down, which I'm kind of glad of. I mean, I like Josh Brolin, but he's been Thanos, he's been Cable, he was Jonah Hex, enough already. So, but now it looks like they offered the role to Kyle Chandler, and he has taken it. And if I remember right, I think the last thing I saw Chandler in is he was in was it Godzilla King of the Monsters? I think that's what it was. HBO's DC series Lanterns has found its Hal Jordan. Emmy winner Kyle Chandler is set to play the legendary member of the Green Lantern Corps in the series, sources tell The Hollywood Reporter. The show will be the first series role for the Friday Night Light star since Showtime's 2022 drama Super Pumped. I never saw that, or I never even heard of that. Lanterns, which scored a straight-to-series order in June after years of development, comes from Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof, and Tom Tom King. Oh, God damn it. The trio are co-writing and executive producing the series, with Mundy serving as showrunner. Okay, well, this is going to be garbage. God, I hate those two. The show, which falls under the HBO banner, is casting and in the middle of hiring directors. The series is looking to shoot from next January to June in Atlanta. Lanterns is described as having a gritty, true detective vibe as it focuses on Jordan reluctantly mentoring a younger Lantern, John Stewart, who in DC publishing history was one of the company's first black superheroes. The story sees the two characters investigating an earthbound murder with larger implications. Sources say that DC and the producers are looking for a more fresh-faced actor for the role to play opposite an older, bigger name. DC initially was looking for a movie star to take on the Jordan role and had been in talks with Josh Brolin, who ultimately passed. And while rumors abounded that actors such as Chris Pine or Ewan McGregor were on the list, that turned out to be mostly wishful thinking. Ewan McGregor is Hal Jordan? I don't see that at all. Chris Pine, yeah, I mean, I guess that could work. Chandler became a name thanks to his Emmy-winning turn as Coach Eric Taylor on the beloved Friday Night Lights series that aired on NBC from 2006 to 2011. He returned to series work with the Netflix thriller Bloodline, which earned him 2 Emmy nominations. In recent years, he has popped up in movies, among them Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, as well as Damien Chazelle's Neil Armstrong biopic First Man. Yeah, so I think what they're doing is it's almost like they're going for a kind of Men in Black type of setup, where you've got the older. Greetings, Maria Alice Tavares Morera Alice. Hello to you. where they're doing, it's like the older, sort of experienced white guy who's bringing in the younger black guy who's the rookie. Uh, of course, the thing is that in the comics, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart have pretty much always been shown as being pretty much the same age. So having them be this way is kind of not really true to the comics, but who cares, right? I mean, Tom King and Damon Lindelof have both shown they don't care about the comics at all. And honestly, the fact that they're both connected to the show just tells this thing's a non-starter to me. I didn't realize they were involved. So this movie is just, I'm going to declare this to be a piece of crap before before I've even seen it, because I don't need to. I've seen enough of Tom King's comic work to know that it's going to be trash. And that's unfortunate. As for Chandler, I mean, he'll probably be fine in the role for what they give him. He's a solid actor. I mean, it would seem to me if they were going to get an older actor to play Hal Jordan, why didn't they just get what's his face, Nathan Fillion? Because he's been like a fan favorite, fan cast kind of actor to play Hal Jordan for 20 years at least. And they cast him to play a Green Lantern in the Superman movie, but he's playing Guy Gardner. Why not just get him to play Hal in this and get someone else to play Guy Gardner? I don't know. It's just I don't get it. But I guess Chandler's he's a solid backup option. Okay, now speaking of DC stuff, and I'm going to have to eat a little crow here, I guess, because I'm going to talk about the Penguin show. Because for a long time I was laughing at the idea of this Penguin show. And just I found the whole idea ridiculous. Like, who wants a Penguin show? Nobody. But apparently it's at least most of what I'm hearing is that this show is pretty good. And not only is it good, but apparently it's doing pretty well ratings wise. So I guess I have to eat my words, because I've been talking crap about the show for probably close to 2 years, and basically just mocking it, and apparently it's pretty good. So anyway, this is from Hollywood Reporter. The Penguin Review. Kristen Milioti steals HBO's Too Familiar, the Batman spinoff, right out from under Colin Farrell's beak. Because of course they had to put a strong independent woman in charge and make her the main character that's really driving the plot. I'm not saying HBO's The Penguin is derivative, but it's the second TV show in less than 6 months in which Colin Farrell plays a character obsessed with the glamour of black and white old Hollywood movies, specifically using clips from Gilda to evoke nostalgia for a period that our hero is too young to have experienced firsthand, a poignant yearning for a world with mystique and morality that no longer exist. Built into the recent spate of origin stories for classic TV and movie villains, such as Norman Bates, the Joker, half the Disney catalog, is an indictment of non-empathetic viewership. These revisionist approaches to iconic tales assume that in the process of goading audiences into rooting for figures more traditionally coded as hero, there was a failure to acknowledge that even the seemingly worst of figures have their awfulness rooted in very human conditions: loneliness, trauma, treatable mental illness, hatred of Dalmatians, and so forth. It's a subgenre that says behind the story you know is the story you never considered, an ostensible revelation that opens up whole new fresh avenues that keep us from having to relive the death of Bruce Wayne's parents ad infinitum. The Penguin is a spinoff of Matt Reeves' The Batman, an already ground level approach to DC Comics lore that introduced us to Farrell, wholly unrecognizable beneath layers of prosthetics as a nightclub owner and second tier gangster. Here's the thing. You offer me the Penguin as a stunted, fish-swallowing freak with an ill-fitting tuxedo and skin so pale he's practically translucent, and I'll happily request, tell me more. Offer me a Penguin who's a husky, underappreciated mobster with insecurity fueled by an unhealthy attachment to a mother who coddles him with one hand and emasculates him with the other, and my first reaction will be, yeah, I've seen The Sopranos. Creator Lauren LaFranc has reconsidered Oswald Cobb, the the obble pot must have been dropped at Ellis Island, not as a colorful and outsized figure in need of complicated explanation, but as a 2000 style prestige television anti-hero, relatable not because he boasts characteristics that every viewer will relate to, but because we've been relating to characters like him on TV for 25 years. It's no wonder that this latest piece of Batman without Batman fabulism, see also Joker, Gotham, several CW shows, and Pennyworth, the origin of Batman's butler, uh, is least interesting when it focuses on its title character. It finds more intrigue in Sophia Falcone, played by Kristen Milioti, in the show's defining performance. Let me guess. Again, I haven't seen the show, so I can't say, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that this character, Sophia Falcone, is the one who's really, dang it, is the one who's really driving the action, driving the plot. And the Penguin really just kind of reacts to what she's doing, I'm going to guess. In other words, it's a show that focuses on a strong, independent woman. The action picks up in the aftermath of the events of the Batman, specifically the destruction of the Gotham seawall and the flooding of the city. Carmine Falcone, played by Mark Strong in flashbacks, is dead, and Salvatore Maroni, played by Clancy Brown, is in prison, so there's a power vacuum in Gotham's criminal underbelly. Alberto, Carmine's son, might be ready to ascend, but he's an addict. Drops are Gotham's trendy new drug of choice. For the purpose of our story, Alberto has too little respect for Oswald, who has made big promises to both his withholding mother, played by Deidre O'Connell, and a lady of the night, whom he loves. Everybody overlooks Oz, and several people mockingly call him the Penguin because of a waddle he has from a poorly managed clubfoot. But he finds a new acolyte in Victor, an orphan teen from a low-income neighborhood of Gotham that was left in ruins after the flooding. And I may be wrong, but I don't think this clubfoot thing was in the movie. Because in the movie, there's the only time when he like waddles is there's a scene where Gordon and Batman are questioning him, and they like handcuff his feet. They bind his feet, and then they drive off and just lead him with his feet bound. And there's one point where he's like chasing after them, trying to get them to set him free, and he's like waddling, kind of like a penguin because his feet can't move. So this clubfoot thing seems to be added in for the show. The only person who senses that Oswald might be capable is Sophia, a serial killer also known as the Hangman, who's just been released from the overcrowded Arkham Asylum after a decade. Sophia and Oz, who used to be her driver, have a dark past, and things threaten to get even darker in the present as they engage in something of a Game of Thrones, especially since Robert Pattinson's Batman is nowhere to be seen or mentioned. Though Gotham is its own distinctively bleak urban space, not quite New York City, but basically New York City, its overall universe casts a gloomy mirror on a 21st century America on the verge of class rebellion. The town's working class citizens are sick of being neglected and left in impotent chaos. Its ethnic criminal enclaves are fed up with existing in the Falcone Maroni shadow. All of Gotham's institutions are poisoned and in the pockets of its upper 1%, which would normally at least include Bruce Wayne, but see above. Although the Penguin makes overt reference to gangster classics like The Godfather and White Heat, and although it left me thinking at various points of a half dozen different HBO titles in the Sopranos vein, it just as frequently reminded me of wannabes in the prestige space, like Ozark or Low Winter Sun. The thing you'll probably compare it to least is the Batman, which is by design. There are fleeting franchise acknowledgments that don't really even count as Easter eggs, a determined ethos that holds up until it doesn't anymore. The story is an accelerated clash that rushes through 3 or 4 seasons of plot in these 8 episodes. Eventually, it's just various bad guys making similar and repetitively violent power plays in which alliances are made but then too hastily broken for any pleasure to be taken, and even the most fruitful of character interactions. Like entirely too many shows of this type, it treats us to cycles of colorful threats, sadistic torture, predictable betrayals, and subsequent bloody disposals, delivered with professional polish but not enough creativity. Perhaps the biggest question everybody will have about the Penguin is whether Farrell's prosthetics work as a full meal after the amuse beak of the Batman. Uh, In that respect, the Penguin really is a qualified triumph. The makeup effects designed by Michael Marino hold up under extended close ups and in all but the brightest lighting. You can glimpse Oz's resemblance to Colin Farrell only occasionally. But this isn't one of those prosthetic jobs that leave the wearer unable to articulate emotions through the layers of rubber. The character is allowed to be awkward and infuriated, and even though perhaps insufficiently funny and eccentric. Farrell's eyes are always visible and expressive, conveying traces of the wounded soul behind an otherwise bumbling and vicious monster. Playing off of Tony Winter O'Connell, who treats Ma Penguin like a figure out of Eugene O'Neill, and Feliz, who offers elements of decency in a world where it's rare, Farrell reveals a slightly softer Penguin. The qualification to the triumph is that a tremendous amount of effort and even innovation has been put into making a professionally handsome movie star into a character actor. I never shook the feeling that this could have been a breakout opportunity for somebody like Eric Lange, Pruitt Taylor Vince, or John Carroll Lynch, passing the savings on prosthetics along to David Zaslav. Instead, it's an opportunity for Farrell to do effective, if exaggerated, James Gandolfini cosplay, right down to certain moments at which the accent similarities become uncanny. Oz proves capable of carrying the story, just not in a fresh way. That's why attentions are likely to shift to Milioti Sophia, a character whose presence comes with less baggage from the comics. Sophia is treated more in that Cruella Maleficent vein as women whose dark path is set in motion by the assumptions and restrictions of the patriarchy. Strutting around in the best examples of the series' costume design, Milioti makes Sophia more plausible than Oz as a tragic victim, an embodiment of everything wrong with Gotham, a figure you can feel sad for and scared for in equal measure. The mano a mano dynamic between the pair yields Milioti and Farrell's best work, but the interplay viewers will crave peaks far too early. The hurried nature of the plotting means that many of its highest profile supporting actors, Jogo Brown, Michael Kelly, Shora Agdashlu, Theo Rossi are underserved. Shora Agdashlu, she was on The Expanse. She played Christian Avasarala. The same is actually true of Gotham, with the locations and production design shining in several episodes, but getting lost in the narrative churn of others. The murky and grimy visual style established in the first three chapters, directed by Craig Zobel and shot by Darren Tiernan, becomes generally flatter as the season goes along. The Penguin takes place in the middle ground of a subgenre that I can never dismiss fully, because every once in a while it yields a Bates Motel or even a Perry Mason amid too many entries that never find a necessity. But if the answer to the question, how did character X get to be they were, is, well, have you seen, then you haven't thought far enough outside of the box. Okay, so uh, can I had one. Oh, here it is. I think. Okay, I'm gonna show this. This is from Variety. Come on. Okay. Okay, this is from Variety.com. Penguin opens to 5.3 million viewers across platforms in first 4 days. Per HBO, the spinoff series starring Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti opened to 5.3 million US viewers across all platforms since its debut on September 19th. That includes repeat airings on HBO as well as streaming viewership. That puts it above the final season premiere of Succession, which drew 4.9 million viewers, and the second season premiere of The White Lotus, which drew 4.1 million. It also falls just behind the premiere of True Detective Night Country, which nabbed 5.7 million viewers. Additionally, the show has landed the biggest 4 day audience for a new series on Max in every region globally since The Last of Us in January of 2023. So, I mean, at least to start, it's doing really well. And like I say, I kind of have to eat my words because I never would have thought that it would do this well. Farrell reprises his role from the Batman in the series, once again playing Gotham City gangster Oswald Oz Cobblepot, or just Oz Cobb. The series picks up in the days after the events of the Batman, with Oz seeking to seize control of the Gotham underworld in the power vacuum created by the death of Carmine Falcone. The show has also found plenty of love with critics, with the Penguin currently holding a 94% critic approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. In a review for Variety, Arami Tinubu wrote, quote, "A masterful examination of criminality. The show is twisted, disturbing, and deeply enthralling." The cast of the series also includes Renzi Feliz, Deidre O'Connell, Clancy Brown, Carmen Ejogo, and Michael Zegan. Mark Strong portrays Falcone in flashbacks, with John Turturro having played the character in the Batman. Okay, I thought that was the case. I was saying I didn't think that Clancy Brown played him in the movie. Lawrence LaFranc is the writer, executive producer, and showrunner of the Batman of the Penguin. The Batman director Matt Reeves executive produces via Six and Idaho, while Dylan Clark executive produces via Dylan Clark Productions. Farrell executive produces in addition to starring, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So it's doing pretty well. And like I say, the critics like it. So far, at least all around, this thing's, it's a hit. It's a success, which Max really needed, I think. The thing that bothers me is that with the success this has, you can expect to see a lot more stuff like this, a lot more shows that are basically are attached to some popular superhero, but don't have the superhero in it. You know, like I don't know, get ready for a Two-Face series. Get ready for a Two-Face show. Get ready for a Scarecrow show. Maybe a Lex Luthor show. Who knows? Okay, what do I want to hit next here? Okay, I'll go ahead and hit this. Okay. So this is from IGN.com. James Gunn's Superman film will apparently star Krypto the Superdog. The DCU Superman film from DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn will feature Krypto the Superdog, according to comic book writer Mark Waid. Best known for writing Superman Kingdom Come alongside Superman Batman World's Finest, Waid said on the Capes and Lunatics podcast that Superman will feature a superpowered dog with heat vision. Though he didn't say Krypto directly, there aren't many other canines of that description. Yeah, I mean, there aren't many dogs that have heat vision. I have a good feeling about this movie, Waid said. I like James Gunn. I like his reverential approach by and large to this kind of stuff. Reverential? I don't know about that. And reverential without taking it too seriously. The movie has a dog in it, a superpowered dog with heat vision. So there's only so much. Then there's a pause, and he says, "It ain't Zack Snyder." Snyder previously directed Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Justice League, and other DC Extended Universe films, like Man of Steel. And Gunn will seemingly be lighter in tone, with myriad wild and wacky characters from DC lore already confirmed. He previously directed the comedic Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy for Marvel, though Gunn has already said Superman will have a different vibe. Regardless, Krypto the Superdog showing up would fit into a more whimsical universe, and fans have already been theorizing his appearance due to set leaks earlier this year. As reported by Screen Rant, Edie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific could be seen outside the pet store, seemingly tracking something and gesturing towards something that wasn't there. Dogs can't fly or shoot heat vision from their eyes or look up in real life, of course, so Krypto would likely be computer generated, and Superman fitting in exactly where Mr. Terrific is looking. Yeah, I guess that could be the case. Superman will be the first film in the rebooted DCU Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters. Yes, we all know that. It's not an origin story and features a ton of other DC heroes and villains. which is exactly the opposite of what I thought they should do. Just, I mean, not necessarily an origin story, but a story that's just about Superman and focus on that. But of course, that's not what they're doing. Alongside David Cornsweet as Superman stands Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, alongside Nathan Fillion as Isabella Merced, Anthony Kerrigan, Maria Gabriella, and more. Gunn confirmed these actors will play the roles in other DCU projects too. Chapter 1 of the DCU also features TV shows, and while the exact contents have shuffled a tad since Gunn and co-creator Peter Safran, or co-CEO Peter Safran, announced it in 2023, an animated series called Creature Commandos will officially kick off the new universe in December. Okay, so, I mean, you know, oh yeah, I forgot. So if you haven't heard, I'll just take a sidetrack here. And I guess this was just a couple of hours before I streamed. It was announced that Chris Christopherson passed away. Of course, big singer. He was a really big in the 70s. You know, that was kind of his heyday. He was a popular singer and also did some movies. Of course, he did a version of A Star Is Born with Barbara Streisand in the 70s that was real popular. More recently, well, recently respectively, but most folks of, say, who are 40 and under probably know him mainly from his role in the Blade movies, you know, where he played Whistler. But yeah, sorry to see him go, but I mean, he's one of those guys. I mean, he lived hard, you know, that guy, that was a hard 88. Okay. And honestly, I'm surprised he made it that long. You know, he's one of those guys like, how did he even live that long? You know, it's like the Stones. You know, it's like, how are they still going at their age? But as far as crypto goes, I mean, I mean, I like crypto and I am kind of tickled by the idea that he's going to be in this movie. But at the same time, you got to be careful how you do him. The thing with crypto is he's kind of like the doorway through which a lot of campy, goofy stuff will flow, you know, because once you put in a flying dog with heat vision, it's hard to take anything all that seriously, you know? And I'm not saying it can't be done, but it has to be done very deftly and very carefully. So I hope they can handle it and make it work. Okay, what next here? Okay. Well, how much time am I at? I'm at 45 minutes. Okay. So let me bring this up. And this is from Screen Rant. Sony and Marvel's new Spider-Man deal. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. That's not what I wanted. Where where is it? Okay, here it is. Yeah, so I'm sorry. This is from comicbookmovie.com. I had the wrong article up. Okay. Rumor, new details on Tom Holland's MCU future as Spider-Man, including a new trilogy and bigger Avengers role. Much has been said about Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures' Spider-Man 4 plans in recent weeks, with all signs now pointing to us seeing Tom Holland's Peter Parker finally meet Tom Hardy's Venom to battle Null. The deal between the two studios fell apart during production of Spider-Man Far From Home, and for a time it looked like Sony would make a third movie without any input from Kevin Feige. Something tells us that wouldn't have ended well. Fan backlash thankfully changed things, but at least part of the reason No Way Home ended the way it did is because no one was quite sure whether we'd see Holland in the MCU again. Plus, no longer under contract, Holland repeatedly cast doubt on his future as the character in general. Yeah, but that was probably a marketing thing. You know, it was probably him and his agent. You know, his agent telling him, you know, you want to seem like you're reluctant, you know, and that you're, you know, you're not eager to come back because then they'll be more worried about getting you re-signed and they'll offer you more money. You know, it's a negotiating thing. Wait, where am I? Okay, so Scooper Daniel Richtman has chimed in today to reveal that plans for the hero extend well beyond Spider-Man 4. He's heard that Spidey will have a much larger role in Avengers Doomsday than he did in Infinity War and Endgame, and that Holland will both film both projects in early 2025. There's no mention of Secret Wars by Richtman, though we'd imagine he'll be back for that a little later, as a plan has supposedly been put in place for next year, which allows Holland to shoot Spider-Man 4 and Avengers Doomsday around the same time. For what it's worth, My Time to Shine Hello has also chimed in with, quote, there's a new Marvel Sony deal that will have Tom Holland reprising his role as Spider-Man in 3 more solo films, Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6, and 3 additional MCU films, including Secret Wars and 2 others. So you would assume Doomsday would be one of those. We'll see. The deal only covered No Way Home and Avengers, and part of the deal was for him to have a huge role to play in the Avengers films. If accurate, this means Spider-Man will have a massive presence in the MCU in both the multiverse saga and whatever comes next after Avengers Secret Wars. This could lead to the character being as pivotal to this franchise as Iron Man, and perhaps most excitingly, surely opens the door to Peter crossing paths with the Fantastic Four. However, that much larger role in Doomsday leads us to believe that Spider-Man's dynamic with Doctor Doom, who shares Tony Stark's face, will be far more important than the villain's potential ties to Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, that would seem likely. That would seem to be the case. Because I mean, you can't have him be Tony Stark basically and ignore that. Not ignore the relationship they had. Which isn't from the comics, of course, but whatever. Destin Daniel Cretton will direct Spider-Man 4, while Spider-Man No Way Home scribes Chris McKenna and Eric Summers are returning to rewrite the script. Release for the movie has not been announced, though we expect it to swing into theaters on July 24th, 2026. So, I wonder what they're paying him because, we've heard that Robert Downey Jr. is getting a huge payday to come back as Victor Von Doom or Tony Stark or Doctor Doom, whatever it is he's playing. But I bet you that Tom Holland's getting a huge paycheck too, because they've got Marvel over a barrel. Because they got rid of Iron Man and Captain America. What did they have left? Well, after them, Spider-Man is easily the most popular character they have, and bringing him back, it's hard to see them having a lot of success without him there. So I imagine that he and his agent are just they're sitting on a pile of money right now, I'm sure. All right. Well, we're 48 minutes. So got time for a couple more. Okay. I'll bring this one up. This is another DC related story. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about, with the success of the Penguin, you can see more stuff that's basically going to have side characters and villains in it instead of the actual superheroes. And this is right in line with that. This is from Screen Rant. Another DC Studios movie is being developed, this time featuring 2 of Batman's greatest DC villains. While the already announced DC Universe Chapter 1 movies and TV shows are still in the works, fans are always curious to learn what other properties DCU Studios will tackle. With DC Studios having put bigger focuses lately on villains like Colin Farrell's new HBO series The Penguin and Joaquin Phoenix's sequel Joker Folie à Deux, it appears more Batman baddies are getting the spotlight in live action. The Hollywood Reporter reveals that DC Studios is developing a Bane and Deathstroke team-up movie. While a director is currently not attached, Matthew Orton, who directed Captain America Brave New World, has developed a screenplay that DC Studios is using, with the filmmaker search likely happening further down the line. Neither DC Studios nor James Gunn have commented on the report as of publication. As exciting as a team-up film with Deathstroke and Bane is, there are a lot of questions left unanswered from this DC Studios report. Even though Gunn and Peter Safran are attached as producers, according to Deadline, it is unclear if this new project is meant to take place in the new DC universe or if it exists outside the upcoming continuity. I mean, I would assume it would. This could very well be another instance where DC Studios will lean into the Elseworlds banner with no ties to the DC Universe franchise, including the Brave and the Bold movie that will be a fresh take on Batman. Okay, so I didn't realize the Brave and the Bold was going to be an Elseworlds thing. I didn't realize that before. I know the Joker is, and I guess the Batman is too. If the Bane and Deathstroke project is actually tied to Gunn's DC Universe, it wouldn't be shocking if this was a semi-replacement for the canceled Arkham Asylum TV show that was set to be a part of the new franchise. While not taking place in Arkham Asylum, the team-up movie could serve as a new villain-led property that can help extend Batman's mythology and Gunn's continuity. But until Gunn and DC Studios comment, time will tell what the Bane and Deathstroke film will actually be for DC Studios. While this was certainly a surprise move from DC Studios, it's great to see them wanting to invest more time into characters like Bane and Deathstroke. Is it? After Joe Manganiello's, however you say his name, Deathstroke film got stuck in development hell, this is making up for it when it comes to Slade Wilson. Further, the movie can also finally do a comic book accurate version of Bane. Hopefully more DC details on the Bane and Deathstroke movie will emerge sooner rather than later. Okay, and that's just sort of boilerplate stuff about the DC universe, and I've read that stuff a dozen times. So, yeah, I mean, I don't hate it, but it really is a source of aggravation to me when you've got characters like Nightwing or Batgirl, the actual Batgirl, not the one they were doing, but Batgirl. I mean, and who else? I mean, Robin really hasn't been done since Batman, those Batman movies in the '90s. That was over 20 years ago, and yet now we're getting a Deathstroke movie. And Deathstroke, he's been done as an anti-hero, and he has had his own book at various times, and he can work, I think, as a lead. But Bane, I don't know. He's an interesting villain, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a good lead for a movie. Uh, although he was a member of the Secret Six for a while. So I don't know. I guess this can work, but I mean, I'd like to see them doing more movies with actual heroes. I mean, hey, how about a Firestorm movie? How about an Atom movie? How about a Hawkman movie? I'd like to see those characters instead of another property built around a villain. It's just really frustrating. Okay. Okay. I guess I got time for one more here. All right. Now, this is from the direct.com. Let me bring this up. Okay. Did Deadpool and Wolverine cut a white Nick Fury cameo? Okay. So Deadpool and Wolverine may have once featured a cute white Nick Fury cameo. Cute, huh? Marvel Studios' latest superpowered blockbuster featured a stacked roster of Marvel heroes, both old and new. The R-rated multiversal epic served as one final goodbye to some of the franchise's lesser-known on-screen characters. On-screen characters like Jennifer Garner's Elektra, Wesley Snipes' Blade, and even the long-rumored Channing Tatum take on the iconic Marvel mutant Gambit. But surely some hit the cutting room floor. Okay, and they've got an image here. I'll come back to it in a second. Fans seem to have deduced that a potential cameo from a white Nick Fury may have been cut from Deadpool and Wolverine. This stems from a behind the scenes photo from the film posted on social media, spotlighting several stunt performers who worked on the movie. This is via Power of the X-Men on Instagram. Every character shown in the picture eventually popped up in Deadpool and Wolverine in some form. That is, except for one. Stunt performer David McDonald was seen in the image wearing an outfit that never made it into the movie, one that bore a striking resemblance to Marvel Comics character Nick Fury. McDonald, who also served as Channing Tatum's stunt double on the Deadpool threequel, was adorned in black leather with a striking eye patch splayed across his face. After the image started to circle on social media, fans made it their quest to try and figure out exactly who McDonald's eye patch wearing character in Deadpool and Wolverine was set to be before ultimately getting cut. And they have an image here of David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury from that movie back in the, when was that? That was like around 1990, wasn't it? What year was that? Let me look that up. I'm thinking that was around like 1990, give or take a year. Okay, I think, yeah, 1998. That was in 1998. So they've got a picture of him, and was that a 20th Century Fox thing? Let me see. Let me look at IMDb here. I don't even know if production. All right, let's try Wikipedia. Maybe it'll say. And then, yeah, production company. So it was by 20th Century Fox and Marvel Entertainment. Yeah. So this was a Fox property. So yeah, it would make sense that he would be a character that would pop up. And I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that's what he's supposed to be. You know, if you look at the stunt guy and standing next to the image of Hasselhoff, you know, they both have this black leather outfit on. And I mean, he's got an eye patch. I mean, how many Marvel characters have an eye patch? You know, not many. Some believe they may have found the answer. Fans seem to believe this particular McDonald character was, in fact, a reference to Baywatch actor David Hasselhoff's portrayal of a white Nick Fury in the 1998 movie Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. In the initial Instagram post's caption, McDonald is referred to as Urge, or ERG, with no mention of Fury or Hasselhoff. Urge is a mutant from Marvel Comics lore who also wears an eye patch and is known for his electric optic blasts akin to those of Cyclops. And they've got an image of him from, I guess it's the X-Men cartoon, and he does have an eye patch, but he's got like this wild punk hairdo, like with green hair with it spiked up. I mean, aside from the eye patch, he looks nothing like the character. So I don't think that's who this is. And again, this is supposed to be in the void or whatever it is where, you know, abandoned characters end up. And, you know, Hasselhoff's Nick Fury fits that. So it would make more sense for it to be him. Above is a picture of Urge from the original X-Men animated series. As you can tell, other than the eye patch, the character's costume and hairstyle has little to no resemblance to Urge and looks much more like the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The biggest piece of evidence pointing to this is the specific placement of leather straps across the torso. The shoulder holster that connects to his black belt is almost identical to the one Hasselhoff wore in his brief time as the iconic Marvel hero, and nothing like the mutant Urge. No, it doesn't. Of course, this cut cameo has not been confirmed to have been the case, but it is pretty convincing. It would just be interesting to know if Hasselhoff himself was ever in talks to play the character, or if he would have been recast like several other legacy cameos seen in Deadpool and Wolverine. I would imagine he would have been recast just because of his age, because, I mean, I don't know how old he was when he did the movie, but he was probably into his 40s. So he'd probably be mid 60s, maybe pushing 70 at this point. And I mean, I haven't kept track of him. I haven't seen him lately, so I don't know what he looks like. But I'm guessing he's probably not in the greatest of shape. Um, if he was, some may begin to wonder how exactly the character was cut. Ultimately, it probably comes down to just how jam-packed the movie ended up being and giving everyone their moment to shine. Yeah, probably there just wasn't room for him or budget or something. Bringing back a hero like Hasselhoff's Nick Cage would have been such a deep cut that even the most seasoned of Marvel fans may not have gotten it, even if it was just a moment or two. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Is that, I mean, let's face it, a big part of the audience for these Marvel films these days is a bunch of millennials who don't really know anything much about Marvel prior to Iron Man, honestly. And they probably never saw and maybe never even heard of this Nick Fury movie. And honestly, they all know Nick Fury to be black anyway. So if you showed them a white Nick Fury, they'd probably just be like, that's not Nick Fury. Who's that guy? There has been plenty of conversation about the various cameos that made the final cut or not in Deadpool and Wolverine, and this only adds to that. Director Sean Levy previously told Variety that there was a 70 name menu of Marvel characters they were looking at trying to jam into the film, including names like Ben Affleck's Daredevil and perhaps David Hasselhoff's Nick Fury. Quote, early on, we were looking at a 70 name menu of Marvel characters. Daredevil was on one of those lists, but never since those earliest of conversations and never to the point of outreach or offers or anything like that. We made contact with everyone featured in the Fox tribute reel halfway through our end credits, and that's dozens of actors who have been a part of that legacy. That was fun to build a love letter to those years, those characters, and all the actors who played them. But as is the case with any sort of production of this size, there was only so much money and time to get those sorts of deals done. And to put it simply, there likely was a lack of one of the other that resulted in the white Nick Fury cameo ultimately getting cut. Okay. So yeah, probably there just wasn't room. I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be Nick Fury, and there just wasn't room to put him in there. I don't think it's a big mystery. Okay. Yeah. So I'm at an hour and 2 minutes. That is enough. Hello, Joshua Subsibi. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Subsibi. Transformers 1 might make a comeback if we get attention on the movie. And by the way, I'm watching Transformers 1 in theaters on Tuesday this week. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is getting good word of mouth. I mean, as I say, I haven't seen it. I'm not the biggest Transformers fan in the world. I doubt that I will. But, I've heard a couple of different YouTubers talk about it that I know and follow, and they both liked it. And it seems like the impression I'm getting is that the people who liked it, who saw it, actually enjoyed it. Kind of like that Bumblebee movie. The people who actually bothered to go see it actually quite enjoyed it. It's just I think people stayed away partly because they're just burnt out. Oh, and hey, J-Man. Hey, buddy. He says, I love Transformers 1, 9 to 10. Loved it. Super fun. Yeah, I saw you. I heard you talking about it. Like I was saying, the YouTubers that I know that have seen it have really liked it. And like that Bumblebee movie, it seems like the ones who saw it did like it, but it didn't have a big opening. And Bumblebee kind of went and came pretty quick, unfortunately. Um, but I think it's that partly that people are just tired maybe of this franchise. Honestly, I think maybe fans are just burnt out to some degree because you had the original run of the Michael Bay movies. Then they tried to do a reboot with Bumblebee, which was basically a prequel, I think. And that kind of flopped. So I think then they pivoted back to doing more of the Michael Bay type stuff. But now that's failed. So now they're doing another quasi reboot with this. And as I said earlier, I think part of the problem is that the longstanding, the legacy audience of Gen Xers and maybe millennials who grew up on this stuff, they're starting to age out or they're losing interest because of reboots and just they're aging out. And the younger audience, like the Gen Alphas, who I think this was kind of aimed at, they're just not into this stuff. That's a big problem, I think, for Hollywood because they basically have bet everything on these franchises, these legacy franchises that have been around for at least since the 80s, if not longer. Some, Star Trek's, I mean, Star Wars has been around since the late 70s, Star Trek since a decade before that. And then you've got Marvel, most of the Marvel characters, they date from the early 60s. And Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, a lot of those DC characters, they date back to the 50s or even back to the late 30s. And the fact of the matter is that I think that a lot of the younger generation coming up, they're just not that interested in these franchises the way we were. And I don't know if that's because they just look at that stuff as that's like old people stuff. They would look at this the way, when I was a kid, I would look at, a lot of Westerns and would be like, that's the stuff old people watch, you know? And I don't know if it's that. I don't know if maybe it's just because, because they've grown up with social media now and with smartphones and stuff like that. They consume their media differently. They consume it through TikToks and crap like that and just aren't that interested in films and TV. I don't know how much of it is, but I think they're failing to win over and bring in these younger audiences. And it's got them trapped because when they try to appeal to these younger audiences and bring them in, it's not working. But then a lot of the older people like me are either aging out and moving on, or they're basically pissed at Hollywood because of all the woke crap that they've put out over recent years. That's part of the problem too. Anyway, though, thank you to those who tuned in and watched during the stream, and those who will check it out on the rewatch. Please do like the stream if you haven't already, and please do sub to the channel while you're here. I will not be doing a Trek Talk Tuesday because I'm going to be very busy this week and probably will not stream next Sunday either, because I'm going to be busy through the weekend. And actually, I probably won't after the next weekend after that, because I'm going to be with my National Guard unit that weekend. Hey, J-Man, you have a good one too, buddy. Thanks for stopping by. And so I'll probably, so 2 weeks, so maybe 2 weeks from now, I'll be back streaming again at the soonest. Anyway, everyone, have a good night. And again, please do send out prayers to those in South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and the other areas that have been just devastated by that hurricane. It's really bad, folks. And again, if you can, please do give to, I don't know, Red Cross or in a charity of your choice to help those folks out, because I think there's a lot of folks that are going to need it. And I think it's pretty clear we're not going to be able to count on the government to really help out much. Anyway, that's all for tonight. Have a good night, folks.